Hello, everybody. I'm Skip Alzheimer, and welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime streaming show. That last film was called Finger Painting, and essentially, it was a look at kind of child development and creativity, and basically, I love it because kids just went nuts. I love the girl who pretended like she was a cat, and she went and was going meow, 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 meow. Really awesome. And messy. Sometimes messy is awesome. Let kids just go wild. So great. Anyways, so we watch old 16mm films, and that's a film that's in my collection. And this next film is Encyclopedia Britannica. It's a very early film, and it's about gardening.
Betsy, look at these beans. We must plant some of them.
Oh, Bill, we must plant corn, too.
I wonder if the vegetables in our garden will grow as large as these in the seed catalog.
There's Daddy.
Hello, everybody. Well, what are you doing?
We're planting a vegetable garden.
We want to grow beans, tomatoes, potatoes, and pumpkins.
In the garden.
I like some pumpkin pie.
Supper's ready. We can discuss the garden at the table.
During the past few days, Bill and Betsy have been making a plan for their garden. They have used books and bulletins on gardening from their school library. Father likes the plan, but the soil must be dry before Betsy and Bill can start the garden. Mr. Allen tests the soil. As he squeezes it, the soil does not make a ball. It crumbles. The soil is dry. Betsy and Bill can start preparing their garden. First, Mr. Allen shows Bill how to turn the soil with a spading fork. He has promised to lend them money for seed. He has told Bill to keep a record of expenses and of the harvest. Spading takes strong muscles. The earth is spaded deep and the soil is turned over. The soil is loosened thoroughly so that the tender roots can grow through it easily. Betsy and Bill are ready to buy seeds. They are eager to start planting. They can buy their seeds at the local store. They want seeds that will grow well and that will produce large and good vegetables. Betsy chooses carefully. Bill checks over the garden plan. Onions, too, are on the list. A handful of onion sets is all that they will need. To have a good harvest, one must plant good seeds and must also use the right kind of fertilizer. Bill takes the advice of the storekeeper. A fertilizer has elements in it which green plants use in making their food. The fertilizer must be mixed with the soil. In this rich, loose soil, plant roots will now find plenty of nourishment. The seeds are planted in straight and even rows. Bill stretches a cord across the garden to guide him. With a corner of the hoe, Bill makes a shallow furrow across the south end of the garden. Radish seeds will go in this first furrow. Each of these tiny seeds has food stored in it. The baby plant will use this food in getting its start in life. Bill plants the radish seeds very close together. From each healthy seed will come one young radish plant. Betsy covers the seeds lightly with soil. They will now germinate and grow if they have enough moisture and warmth. It's a few weeks later and time to set out the tomatoes and to plant the potatoes. The potatoes themselves are cut and the pieces planted. Mother shows Bill how to cut the potatoes. The eyes are buds from which roots and stems will sprout. The potato has much stored food. The new potato plant uses this food until its roots and leaves are developed. Bill leaves one eye on each piece. Weeds also thrive in the rich soil of the garden. They must be destroyed, otherwise they will rob the vegetables of nourishment and needed sunlight. There has been no rain for several days, so Bill waters the garden with the hose. The first crop of radishes is large enough for the table. Next week, there will be another crop. Food made in the leaves with the help of sunlight has been stored in a swelling in the root. Bill proudly gives his mother the first harvest from the garden. It has meant much work, but it's worth it. 6 weeks have passed since the garden was started. The beans are beginning to grow into vines. They will twine about these poles and climb up high. Then the plants can get more sunlight. The potato plants have a good start and are in bloom. But potato beetles have appeared and are eating some of the leaves. If the leaves are destroyed, there will be no potatoes. Bill sprays arsenate of lead on the potato plants. When the beetles eat the poisoned leaves, they die. The weeds have lost. The carrots have grown large and firm. Food made in the leaves has been stored in the fleshy roots. How good they will taste. Soon the tomatoes will be ripe. The young tomato plants took root and grew large and strong. To get bigger tomatoes, Bill prunes off the lower branches. Then more of the food made by the plant will go into the tomatoes. But what are these? Tomato worms, and big ones. Bill decides that he, not the caterpillars, will win this time. But the pumpkin vines cause no trouble. They are now in bloom, and soon little pumpkins will form. The corn tassel and silk, stamens and pistils are parts of the flower. As the sun shines on the green leaves, they make food for the plant. It is August now. The crops need water. Rain, rain. It soaks into the soil. The spreading roots of the garden plants will take in the water. Rain, rain, don't go away, the gardeners say. The rain saves Bill from watering the garden. In 10 more days, the corn, the potatoes, and the onions can be harvested. This is a good time for Bill to work on his account book. Bill thinks his potatoes will pay after all. He sprayed them in time, and the beetles did only a little damage. With a potato fork, he digs enough to last the Allen family a few days. The vines have begun to turn brown, which means that the potatoes are about as big as they will get to be. Firm potatoes called tubers have formed at the end of the underground stems of the potatoes. The fall crop of potatoes will be bigger and firmer. In another month, the pumpkins will be ripe enough to harvest. The corn is ready for roasting. These ears are really fruits of the corn plant. Bill and Betsy have decided to let some of the choice ears ripen on the stalk for seed next year and to exhibit some at the state fair.
These are jack-o'-lanterns that Betsy and I grew.
Now you know why people feel like celebrating at harvest time.
All over the world, people have feasting and good times when the crops have been gathered in.
Our feast is ready. Bill, you take the corn out now. Watch out, the ears are hot. Now you understand why the Pilgrims had a Thanksgiving feast after their first harvest.
When you raise corn like this, it's worth celebrating.
So some of those early Encyclopedia Britannica films don't normally have other voices beyond the narrator. So that was kind of exciting. Although it was the same format in that it was all voiced over. The audio was added later. Because, you know, that's just how they do it. So this next film is a little bit longer, but the color's beautiful, and it's kind of a weird film. I feel like these are Lutherans. Could be wrong. But this is a film about living in a trailer and driving around working on atomic plants. And my grandfather actually did that. He was a journeyman carpenter, and he helped work on one of the first atomic power plants in Pennsylvania. And so my grandfather's not in this film, but it's an interesting film nonetheless. So enjoy. This is Life on Wheels.
My name is... I'm a cement finisher and a Christian. Big building jobs have been going on for a long time, even before the pyramids and the Tower of Babel. Ever think about the fellows who do these jobs? I do. You see, I'm from the same union. We're the boys who put the steel into visions, the concrete into dreams. We build big and move on, and build big again, leaving monuments behind us for poets to picture. Write about the master builders who did the job. Let me tell you how my story starts. It starts with a formula. It starts somewhere over the horizon, in a place I never heard of and that I'll never see. It starts with a lot of tense-looking men wondering when and how it will end. It starts with a bang. My story starts with the dawn of a new age. They learned how to scramble atoms, and so they needed big plants built, like Oak Ridge, Savannah River, and Paducah. They needed me and millions of craftsmen like me. So I bought a chrome-covered wagon, put my family aboard, and we became members of America's mobile population. We travel a rough road in a lot of ways. That house I'm hauling is a heavy strain. I can feel the mortgage when I pull it. And the life is lonely, hard on Nora and the kids. You know, 6 schools in 2 years, change your neighbors like you change your oil. No continuing friendships for the children, no sense of really belonging, no roots. I was thinking the day we hit Piketon, the gateway of the new atomic plant we were to build, of what our coming means to a place. We blast new roads, churn up the earth, shove hills aside, build cities over the carcasses of country stores. And then we vanish to the next place, where again we'll be needed, where again we'll come and go, changing everything but ourselves, like lost sheep of whom people say, leave them alone and they'll go home, dragging their trailers behind them. Yeah, it's a rough road in a lot of ways, or it was, until it took us past a barn at Wakefield Village, a barn the likes of which I never saw before. And that's the story you just gotta hear. There was a fellow who tended that barn, big and soft-spoken, and with hands on him like an iron worker, a fellow named Paddock, Captain Bill Paddock of the Church Army, an organization for men and women evangelists of the Episcopal Church. Captain Bill made it a point to keep his eye on the road, looking for house trailers, newcomers. You might say he was looking for me. And so were his spotters, up and down the line in every converted cornfield they call a trailer village, from Piketon to Lucasville. Now, the Wells family, on the other hand, was looking for nothing and expecting less. We found a vacant site with the flowers still left from the last man's garden, and we unhitched and got squared away as we'd done dozens of times before. With us, when the kitchen gadgets got plugged in and the TV aerial was raised, we were home. Nora handled the garden. She got her green thumb on a farm back in Utah. Jeannie polished up the front walk. Ernie and Dave drew the lawn policing detail. And little George had played with the kitten. It started the same here as everywhere. New address, we figured, but the old routine. Until the day we'd fold our $10,000 tent and softly steal away. We expected to come and go as we always had, without feeling that we'd ever belonged. But the very next day, we began to discover how wrong we were. I'd gone to the plant to start work, but Nora was home when the milkman called. This milkman, Jarvis, didn't only talk about putting us on his route, he greeted us as a resident of the valley, said we'd find that folks around here would welcome us as neighbors, and mostly, he talked about the church, that strange barn we'd seen where the church program was centered. He said it was the finest he'd ever known, and that he'd hoped we'd get to know it too, and let it do for us what it had done for hundreds of trailer families. Then he left us some free quartz and lit out into the rain, leaving Nora to wonder about the pitch. He seemed far more interested to sell us that barn up the road with a cross on it than the milk he hauled. The town hall of a trailer village is its supermarket, where he can buy everything from bubble gum to batteries. Nora went over that morning to stock our refrigerator, and a lady named Bennett closed in on her and picked up where the milkman had left off. People seemed so much friendlier around here, made you feel they were really glad to know you. It was unusual, and it was nice. Miss Bennett invited Nora to a coffee clutch that afternoon at her trailer. She wanted to introduce her to some of her friends. Nora said she'd be delighted, and the ice was broken. Nora didn't know it, but the man behind the milkman, the architect of the coffee clutch, the master builder of the barn church, Captain Bill Paddock, was coming to meet her. Bill had been sent here by the Diocese of Southern Ohio, had been waiting when the very first trailer rolled in. His was a ministry to the Mobile population. His was a church on wheels. He lived with trailer people and for them. He understood them, their loneliness, restlessness, pioneering spirit. To hundreds of families drifting and spirit-starved, he began by dropping over for a cup of coffee and ended by bringing Christ in concrete. But I'm getting ahead of my story. The Bennett trailer was a Christian trailer, and a lot of real evangelism had been percolated here over a lot of coffee. It was a wonderful afternoon for Nora, being welcomed by people who had shared her kind of life, its problems and its joys. And when Bill showed her the church's schedule and invited her over, she was tempted, even though Nora, like me, never thought much of church. We'd never seen where it showed any special concern for the laboring man, particularly if he lived on wheels. That night, I got some shocks of my own. A union meeting of cement finishers had been called, and the meeting place was this barn. I didn't like it. I figured a church barn was a place for sheep, not cement finishers. But nobody else seemed to think so, so I kept quiet and listened. The leader opened the meeting, and for the moment I forgot where we were. It began like a good Orthodox local session, but right off, some guy moved that we put down a cement quadrangle next to the barn for kids to roller skate on, and this on our own time. I figured the leader would nip that in the bud, but instead he says, if the other trades could build this church on their own time, we can do our share. There ain't a more Christian local in the AF of L than the cement finishers. And they took a vote. It was unanimous, except for me. I couldn't see it. Never heard of such a deal. But a funny thing, Captain Bill Paddock, he never asked us for it, never said one word. That next Saturday, we drove into town, like we always did in other places. And Piketon was like the rest. It had atomic fever. Everything was big, except the way we felt. How much can you eat? How many movies can you see? Even if they are atomic. We'd have traded the whole experience for a postcard from home. Something made us stop by the barn on our way back. There they were, the almost unanimous local laying a cement quadrangle for kids to skate on so as they could stay off the road, without pay, on their day off. And some of them didn't even have kids. It was like looking in a mirror, and suddenly I was sore at the guy I saw through that mirror. Those fellas seemed big. Not atomic, but really big. And so much bigger than me. Did I say I felt sore? You should have seen Nora. Her engine was really boiling over. She figured her husband wasn't worth a shooting. And so did he. Even Jeannie looked at me like I'd pawned the family jewels. When Nora worked up a full head of steam, she just sailed off. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. Well, that barn beat anything we ever heard of. Nursery classes, with mothers working as teachers on their own time. They took our youngsters right in and let them know they belonged. A library for grown-ups and for kids of Dave's age, and I mean a real library. The Church Army woman worker, Edna Brooks, took care of Jeannie. The whole place throbbed like a generator, putting out warmth and learning and concern, and the whole plant running on the power of love. In the weeks that followed, we found ourselves being drawn closer and closer to the church. It happened in simple, quiet little ways that we weren't even aware of. Miss Bennett, for instance, got close to Nora, and though she never pressured her, she'd help her. She cared about her and showed it. She'd talk about our children and the religious education that they needed so that they would be the right kind of kids and grow up to be the sort of men and women we hoped they'd be. And Nora would get to thinking, and the idea would stick, bubbling and boiling and brewing inside her. A lot of thoughts were bubbling in me, too. I'd heard how Captain Paddock was up night after night, helping people who'd gotten into trouble in town or at the plant. I'd heard he was always on hand to help when a baby was born or when someone was sick. And when some accident happened, it was always Captain Bill who took over and saw the family through. I thought about the differences being there made in people. That nice milkman, that crew of cement finishers, the Bennetts who hadn't been inside a church for 10 years till they came here. I thought about this village, how it was clean as a whistle because of that man and that barn. And then I noticed an ad in a local paper that said, "Anyone in trouble or in need of a friend, call Captain Paddock." And that was the kind of religion I could understand. There it was, in so many words, anyone in trouble, give God a chance to help. I soon learned how this ministry worked. And it was the milkman who had first come to us about the church, who was the instrument that showed me the light. Ed Jarvis, like all milkmen, drove his route between 2 and 8 a.m. every morning. And I guess he was a mighty weary guy time he got home. Some days he wouldn't even rest. He'd just go right out on his route again to make collections. And this was one of those days. Well, you figure it out. A guy is traveling fast so he can cover his whole route and make collections, and he's riding a blind and crooked country road. He hasn't slept all night, and he's dead tired. And there's someone else on that narrow road coming his way. They saw each other late, and his brake went out. Jarvis was in trouble. The only things he'd collected that morning were a concussion and a broken arm. He'd asked the highway patrol to call Captain Paddock. They'd taken him to Chillicothe, the nearest hospital to the scene of the wreck. Jarvis was despondent and in pain, and Captain Paddock sought for a way to comfort him. From the Book of Common Prayer, he read some Bible passages and prayers which expressed God's concern for those in trouble and his offer of strength and comfort to those who turned to him. It was his route that worried Jarvis far more than his injuries. His people were counting on him. They'd have to use someone else. And by the time he was well again, his business would be gone. He had a family and a future to think of. Yes, Ed Jarvis was in trouble. He was answering that ad all right, and Bill Paddock didn't let him down. Bill said he'd run the route personally. Just teach him the stops, and starting that night, he'd go to work. And he did. He gets my vote for the hardest working human being in the history of the Scioto Valley, with energy like the atom itself can release. He picked up the chore. In addition to his other duties, which occupied him from dawn to midnight, he delivered milk from midnight to dawn for the next 6 weeks. And on his own time. Thereafter, my family went to church. We too were in trouble and needed help. Not like Ed Jarvis, but like 3 million men and women living on wheels, spiritually as well as physically adrift, wanting roots, wanting a rock on which to build. Captain Paddock understood our needs. He knew us, for he shared our life in the camps, lived like us in a trailer. He gave us himself and offered us a chance to share with him the way and the truth and the life. After work, he spent hours instructing me, teaching me that our Lord labored and was a craftsman too. We discovered that the closer we drew to the church, the richer our lives became. Nora joined the Women's Society, and it opened new horizons for her. These girls studied and worked and had fun together, went on jaunts which cemented friendships, like the one over to a factory in West Virginia, just to see how glassware is blown. Nora still talks about it. But it wasn't what they saw or did that made their weekly sessions so wonderful. It was the doing of it together, just building friendship through shared experience that gave them a glow. Yes, I found, like Nora did, that the more we gave of ourselves to the life of our church, the more we received. I attended meetings at the barn, presided over by the Bishop of Southern Ohio. As a lay representative, I learned that all the churches from the beginning had worked together in a cooperative ministry. As soon as plans for the atomic plant were announced, they had formed an interdenominational committee headed by a Methodist minister coordinator, and on which there served Presbyterians, Disciples, Baptists, Lutherans, United Brethren, and Episcopalians, and others. Under the auspices of the Ohio Council of Churches and the National Council of Churches, all the communions pooled their resources, each taking a vital part in this great Christian adventure. And I understood how much sweat and faith and great leadership it took to do the job for me and mine. A lot of months went by, and then one night, When Captain Paddock finally got a chance to turn in early, something tremendous happened to me. It was the night of the youth canteen, and Nora and I were serving as chaperones. Youth canteen was one of the barn church's really great ideas. It provided so much fun for our teenagers that they came here instead of following the roads to town and trouble. Trouble? I didn't know it when the phone rang, but that was trouble itself calling, and just on the night when the Wells were holding the fort. You might say I was representing the church that night. I was the guy on the other end of the ad, for people in need, people lost and afraid and in trouble. And the voice on the phone? A police officer in Portsmouth was telling me about a boy, one of our trailer village boys, stole a car, reckless driving, no license. He was in jail. It all happened with me holding the fort. I started to call Bill. He was the churchman, not me. But I couldn't. I thought of him resting, and I couldn't call. No, it was my job. That is, if I'd really become a Christian. It wasn't just my duty, it was my opportunity. And so I shoved off for Portsmouth on my own time. Portsmouth is a busy town on the Ohio, at the foot of the Scioto Valley. But I didn't have time to sightsee. I found the chairman of the Defense Area Committee, John Snook, whom I'd met at church meetings. He was an Episcopal layman devoted to the church and always working to smooth relations between the established communities and the trailer villages. When he'd heard the story, he dropped everything, and right there on his own time, he went to work. He called the judge of the juvenile court to get permission for us to go over to the jail, to have a talk with the boy. The lad had made a mistake, and he knew it. It was his first offense, and he was so scared, so ashamed, I felt sure it would be his last. Then Mr. Snook arranged for us to see the judge who reviewed the case. He spoke firmly to the boy, warned him in no uncertain terms. I asked the judge for clemency, promising that our church would work with the boy and that I would vouch for him personally. The judge knew of the barn and its work, and when Mr. Snook agreed to share my responsibility for the boy, he consented to letting him off this time with a warning. I guess you could say it was on that day that I discovered I'd become a Christian. In the months that followed, I discovered how these changes in my way of life had cut deep. They had produced not just new ideas, but a new purpose and new standards. At the Easter sunrise service, held on a hillside and conducted by Archdeacon Thornbury of our diocese, I was moved and uplifted beyond any moment that I'd ever known. The seed of faith planted and nurtured by Captain Bill was growing, causing me to grow. Nora shared all this with me. We asked to be baptized in the Wayside Cathedral, a Mobile church which Captain Paddock had driven to the trailer villages to begin his work. The Archdeacon baptized us and our children in this church on wheels, which had brought God's love to so many, which had enabled God to find us, and us to find ourselves. Life had come to us on wheels. When our bishop came to Wakefield Village, we were among those who shared in the service of the Holy Communion. We felt very close to our Lord in that barn that day, and we knew more clearly than ever before that by keeping close to him, we could count on his strength to help us keep growing. This morning, 14 months after we came to this valley, we got ready to leave. The cement work is done over at the plant. And me, I'm back on my own time. Like we'd done dozens of times before, we hitched up and headed for the road, dragging our trailer behind us, and we're off. Where? I don't know. North, maybe, to build a seaway. Maybe west, to cough up a dam or lay down a turnpike. Maybe there's another king-size frying pan needed for scrambling atoms. I don't know. But wherever we go, we'll never forget what happened to us here. I understand now what the church is doing through Captain Paddock, the Wayside Cathedral, the barn, putting life on wheels so that wherever those wheels roll, they'll carry Christ to others in need. And that's a job for our wheels from here on out. My name is George Wells. I'm a cement finisher and a Christian. I'm what you call a master to build Christ's kingdom, to bring life to others who live on wheels. So help me God.
Oh, you Episcopalians, you, I think in high school, and I guess when I moved to North Carolina, we became Episcopalians. So that film, you know, it goes all over the place. The splices didn't help in not knowing what that guy's name was or what he was doing, but the fact that he's like, oh yeah, I travel and I help build things, and oh yeah, I take my family on the road, and oh yeah, we're going to this place to work on this atomic power plant, and oh, here's a atomic blast to get your attention. I mean, that was like such a weird diversion. But then it's like, and then there's the barn church. So this is a film about missionary work, and I didn't glean it the first time I saw it, but this time I got it. This film would be shown in churches to raise money for the diocese. And specifically, this money would go towards missionary work, trying to reach people, in either other countries or even in the United States, and trying to get them to be good Episcopalians and good people in general. Supposedly, that's the deal. And so this would be shown as part of a fundraiser, maybe during Lent, because Lent was a big time the churches raised money. So I have other films made by the same guy, and I think this one's the most interesting, but I don't know, I might spring another one on us in a couple of months, a month or so, I don't know. But speaking of money, asking for something, hey, Bill, thank you for giving us some coffee. That's what we trade in here at AV Geeks, is delicious coffee. So you can buy us coffee at buymeacoffee.com/avgeeks. You can also go to avgeeks.com and see other things that we put online and see DVDs that we have for sale, etc., etc. Also, tell the world you like AV Geeks, or at least you're interested in what AV Geeks are putting out there. Because when would you ever see this film? Really? Like, when would you set aside that time? And so I appreciate you guys watching. Now we're going to shift gears so quickly that the transmission might fall out. This next film is a cornet film made in the 80s. And it features cavemen. I did a show that was called Clowns and Cavemen, and it was just films featuring clowns and featuring cavemen, and one that was a caveman clown that got their point across. So this was an odd film, Standing Up for Yourself.
Most of the time, when people are together, they're able to get along with each other and make each other feel good. One reason is that usually people respect each other's rights, like the rights people have to their own space, to the things they own, to their own bodies, and their right to feel good about themselves. But unfortunately, people don't always make each other feel good. Every now and then, someone might do something to you that you don't like, that makes you feel bad, that takes away one of your rights. For instance, suppose someone calls you a name, or crowds you, or takes something away from you, or pushes you, or kisses you when you don't want to be kissed. When things like this happen, they might make you angry, or scared, or sad, especially if they happen over and over again. And they might make you wish you were bigger or stronger. But wishing you were different and getting angry aren't much help. When these things happen, you need someone to stop them from happening, someone to protect your rights, to stand up for you. And the person who can stand up for you the best is you. You just need to know how. There are many things you can do to stand up for yourself. For instance, suppose you're minding your own business and someone calls you a name. You might not like that, and it might make you feel like calling the person a name back again. Well, suppose you do that. The two of you might just end up calling each other more names, and the next time you meet, you might have the same problem all over again. You wouldn't have solved anything. So instead, what might be a good way to solve the problem? One thing you could do is just ignore the name calling. Don't pay any attention to it. You could even act as if it doesn't bother you. Why would you do that? Because the person might only be trying to upset you, to have the fun of seeing you angry. So if you don't act upset, the person might lose interest and the problem might go away by itself. It's not always easy to ignore someone who's calling you names, but you might be able to make it easier. For instance, if you think of the problem as just too small to worry about. Or if you think of the person as not worth paying attention to. Or if you imagine yourself in a suit of armor so nothing can bother you. But what if the name-calling really does bother you? And what if ignoring it doesn't work? You have a right to feel good about yourself, and to want other people to feel good about you too. For instance, suppose you do something that's a little clumsy, and someone calls you stupid in front of your friends. You'd need to stand up for yourself by speaking up for yourself. You could say that the thing you did might have been dumb, but that you're not dumb. Or that everybody does dumb things once in a while, which is true. Sometimes it's a good idea to speak up for other reasons. Suppose someone at school takes up 2 places by spreading things all around, and there's no place else for you to sit. And let's say you decide to stand up for yourself by pushing the things away. That might not be the best solution to the problem. The person might just push back again. And it's even possible you could find yourself in a fight. You could get hurt, and you'd probably just make a bigger problem than you had before. So what could you do instead? Maybe all you'd need to do is tell the person what you want, in a friendly way, but in a clear way. You could say something like,
"I'd like to sit here. Would you mind moving your things, please?"
Often people just don't think about what you want, so sometimes you need to tell them. Speaking up will make you feel better, and if it works, you haven't made any new problems. You've just solved one. But sometimes just telling someone what you want isn't enough. Sometimes people know what you want or don't want and do something to you anyway. For instance, suppose someone thinks it's funny to push you, and you say you don't like it. But suppose that doesn't help. You'd have to do more than say what you feel. You'd have to say it so the person could understand that you really mean it. And when you do that, the way you say it might be just as important as what you say. You should look the person in the eye and speak in a strong voice.
"I don't want you to do that to me, and I really mean it."
And if that doesn't solve the problem, you might have to say it again and again. Because people who want to be mean sometimes think that their rights are more important than yours. So they often pick on other people who look weak, people who look like they won't stand up for their rights. If you show that your rights are important by acting strong, that alone might solve the problem. But it isn't always easy to act strong. It might help for you to practice in front of a mirror until you feel good doing it. You could even plan ahead with your parents exactly what to say and do, so that when a problem comes up, you feel ready.
Don't do that anymore, and I mean it.
Acting strong doesn't always work, but it's usually worth trying, because sometimes it does. There are times, though, when acting strong might not be the best idea. Suppose there is a bully who is bigger than you are and who sometimes does something really mean, like take your lunch money, or knock you down. Or even worse, suppose there is a gang of people who do these things to you. Sometimes people are mean because they don't think much of themselves. And they want to make themselves feel big and important, and they think they can do it by making you feel little and unimportant. Or they might just be angry and want to take it out on someone, or something. Or they might be afraid for some reason and try to hide their fear by being mean. Whatever their reasons are, if things like this happen, it might be dangerous for you to try to act strong. If you do, you might really get hurt. So what can you do? Suppose you've tried saying and doing everything you can think of and nothing works. Then it might be best to stay away from the problem, or make it stay away from you. For instance, you might be able to stay away from a bully by taking new streets to or from school, or by taking old streets at new times. Or you might be able to keep a bully away from you by staying with friends, or walking on streets where there are a lot of other people. But what if even these things don't work? Then you might be able to find a person who can help you. When you need help, it's okay to get it. It isn't tattling. You might go to a cashier in a store, or to a police officer.
He knocked me down twice, and now he's following me.
Or you might just have to yell to get help.
Ah! This guy is bothering me!
When you have problems standing up for yourself, just talking with an adult you trust might help you. And it might give you ideas about more things you can do on your own. And when nothing else works, sometimes an adult can do things to solve a problem that you couldn't do yourself. There's one problem especially that you never need to handle alone, one that might seem very confusing. Suppose you're with an adult who wants to touch you where you don't want to be touched. You need to say in a strong voice,
"No, I don't want you to do that, and I really mean it."
Then, even if the adult says something bad will happen if you tell, you need to get away and tell someone you trust. Remember, if something like this happens, it's never your fault. This is one time when standing up for yourself means letting someone else stand up for you too. If you do all these things, let people know what you want, make people understand you really mean what you say, stay away from some problems, and get help when you need it, you can probably stand up for yourself pretty well. Not always or with everybody, but more often than you could before.
Yeah, cavemen. I can't leave you with a film about cavemen molesting each other. I got to end on something else. So here are some commercials from the 1960s.
If you're at the age when the years are beginning to show, here's wonderful news for you. It's been noted in Vogue and Harper's Bazaar. It's Redeemer, the fabulous cosmetic preparation that dramatically smooths skin in just 2 weeks. Now in America, for the first time, Redeemer has been used by millions of women on 3 continents. Redeemer is a unique gelée that has achieved visibly improved appearance in test cases for 8 out of 10. Redeemer dramatically smooths skin in just 2 weeks. Use Redeemer daily. See what it can do for you. Now another Meridel product.
Ladies, here's news. These are wet deodorants, but now there's a dry deodorant, Dry Day. New Dry Day starts dry, stays dry, keeps you dry all day. Dry Day is a pressed powder deodorant, never sticky, never runny. New Dry Day, the dry deodorant.
Now that's what I call shine. I've never seen a floor with so much shine.
That's because you've never seen new formula Glow Coat on a floor before. It's in stores now. Johnson's new hard gloss Glow Coat with newly discovered brighteners for shine and special hardeners for toughness. Glow Coat's tougher and brighter than ever. New Glow Coat can take heavy punishment like this hard as a solid vinyl floor. That means when you have new hard gloss Glow Coat on your floors, the tough bright shine you get is the tough bright shine you keep. So look for this new round Glow Coat container from Johnson's Wax, the folks who know most about shine. It's in stores now. With newly discovered brighteners for shine, special hardeners, you'll get the toughest, brightest shine in Glow Coat history.
Is it vital to your skin? To safeguard this moisture, use Princess Dial, the complexion soap with moisturizing cream right in it. As these water beads show, Princess Dial works to replenish the delicate oils that hold in moisture, hold out dryness. Princess Dial with moisturizing cream for the woman who has been afraid to use soap on her face.
Save your money while you save your hands. Get Chiffon, the dishwashing liquid that saves you up to 20 cents over most leading brands. Save your hands. Get Chiffon.
Elliot Ness hails the underworld. Hold it! Get out of there with your hands up. And a hail of bullets answer from those who blaze defiance at the untouchables. relentlessly driving on to face new dangers from the never-ending cavalcade of criminals who follow in the blood-stained footsteps of those who defy the law.
They're going to be breathing down their necks. Every move they make, every place they go, every dime they spend. Sooner or later, they're going to make a mistake, and I want to know about it.
Robert Stack as Elliot Ness, kingpin of the Untouchables, most honored of all dramatic series, and now going on to win new acclaim with its suspense-filled, action-paced stories of men against the mob. Exploding Bulls, every week on ABC TV.
Here's wonderful first aid news. When your Bronco Buster skins an elbow, instead of struggling with stinging tincture of iodine, now you can change this to this in a hurry with new Instant Mediquick, the complete first aid spray. When Mother's Helper nicks a finger, Mediquick helps you prevent infection. And Mediquick sprays away pain with xylocaine, a most effective local anesthetic used by many doctors. And laboratory tests show Mediquick fights bacteria even better than tincture of iodine. Use Mediquick for helps you prevent infection as you spray away pain. Mediquick takes the sting out of sunburn. Mediquick takes the tormenting itch out of mosquito, fly, even chigger bites. Great for poison ivy, too. Mediquick, the complete first aid spray. Push button or squeeze bottle.
Yeah, so that had a, yeah, somebody put Bactine. Yeah, it has a real Bactine vibe to it. Yeah, xylocaine. Yeah, so we had seen some of those commercials before, and it was from a real compilation reel of some commercials. So sometimes there's duplicates in there, but Princess Dial. But thanks again, everybody, for tuning in today. I hope everybody has a good weekend, and we will be back on Monday live, watching some old 16mm films. If you like what you saw, you can hit the like, subscribe, ring the notification bell so that you can find out about future times that we do shows. And of course, sharing this with friends, family, strangers. You can buy us coffee by going to buymeacoffee.com/avgeeks. And you can go to avgeeks.com and see some other things that we put online. Everybody have a great rest of your day and a great weekend. We look inside the film can, we see wonderful advice. Today it's please rewind and love each other. Well, almost every day is please rewind and love each other. I have yet to find another thing in a can that is as good as this. So we're going to go with this until I can find something better. But everybody take care, and we will see you soon.